They were going to hang the girl for being Apache until a lone cowboy stepped in. Jachu synopsis. In the harsh frontier town of Silver Creek, Arizona in 1885, a young Apache woman named Maria finds herself falsely accused of a brutal murder that has shaken the entire community. As the bloodthirsty mob prepares to carry out frontier justice with a rope and a tall oak tree, a mysterious cowboy named Cole Brennan rides into town. What he witnesses will force him to make the most important decision of his life: turn away and let injustice prevail, or stand against an entire town to save an innocent woman whose only crime was being born Apache. This is a story of courage, justice, and the power of one person to change everything. You're about to witness one of the most powerful stories of courage and justice ever told. If this incredible tale moves you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing stories like this one. The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty main street of Silver Creek as Cole Brennan rode his weathered horse into town. It was late afternoon in July 1885, and the heat shimmered off the wooden buildings like liquid fire. Cole pulled his hat low over his eyes, squinting against the harsh light as he took in the scene before him. Something was wrong. The usual bustle of a frontier town was replaced by an ominous energy that made the hair on the back of Cole's neck stand up. People moved in tight groups, their faces hard and angry, their voices carrying an edge of violence that Cole had learned to recognize from his years as a lawman. Cole was a man of 32 years, tall and lean from a life spent in the saddle. His weathered face bore the marks of sun and wind, and his pale blue eyes held the steady gaze of someone who had seen too much of human nature's darker side. He wore a simple brown leather vest over a faded blue shirt, and a well-maintained Colt .45 hung at his hip. This wasn't a gun for show. Cole had used it when necessary, though he took no pleasure in violence. He had come to Silver Creek looking for work. Word had reached him in Tucson that the town was growing, that there might be opportunities for a man with his particular skills. Cole had served as a sheriff in smaller towns throughout the territory, and he was hoping to find a position that would allow him to settle down, maybe even start the family he'd been thinking about more and more lately. But as he rode down Main Street, it became clear that Silver Creek was dealing with something far more serious than the usual frontier problems of claim jumpers and cattle rustlers. "String her up!" someone shouted from the crowd gathered near the town's only saloon. "Apache witch deserves to hang." Cole's blood ran cold. He'd seen lynch mobs before, and he knew how quickly they could turn from angry words to deadly action. He spurred his horse toward the commotion, pushing through the crowd of townspeople who were all focused on something he couldn't yet see. "Gentlemen, please," a voice called out above the angry murmur. "Let's at least discuss this properly." Cole recognized the voice of someone trying to maintain order, probably the local sheriff or mayor, but the crowd's bloodlust was already running too high for reasonable discussion. As Cole maneuvered his horse closer, he finally saw what had captured the town's attention. In the center of the crowd, a young Apache woman sat on a horse, her hands tied behind her back. She couldn't have been more than 20 years old, with long black hair that hung loose around her shoulders, and dark eyes that blazed with defiance despite her precarious situation. What struck Cole immediately was her bearing. Despite being surrounded by people who clearly wanted her dead, she sat straight in the saddle, her chin raised, meeting the hostile stares with unwavering courage. She wore a simple brown dress that had seen better days, but she carried herself with a dignity that commanded respect. "This is Maria Santos," called out a heavy-set man who seemed to be leading the mob. Cole recognized the type, probably a local businessman or rancher who had appointed himself spokesman for the town's anger. She was found near the Morrison place right after the family was murdered, a Apache knife still in her hand. "That's not proof she did it, Hutchins," the voice of reason called out again. Cole spotted the speaker now, a middle-aged man wearing a sheriff's badge, though he looked overwhelmed by the situation. "What more proof do you need, Sheriff Clayton?" Hutchins shot back. "Dead family, Apache girl with a bloody knife, and you want to hold a trial? This is frontier justice, plain and simple." Cole had heard enough. He nudged his horse forward until he was at the edge of the crowd. "Mind if I ask what exactly happened here?" he called out, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being heard. The crowd turned to look at this newcomer, and Cole could see the mix of anger and suspicion in their faces. Hutchins stepped forward, sizing up Cole with obvious hostility. "And who might you be, stranger?" Hutchins demanded. "Name's Cole Brennan," Cole replied evenly. "I'm a lawman by trade, and I've dealt with situations like this before. Maybe I can help sort things out." "We don't need any help sorting anything out," Hutchins snarled. "This Apache killed the Morrison family. Tom, his wife Sarah, and their 2 little children, butchered them in their own home while they slept. Found her trying to steal their horses not 2 hours after the bodies were discovered." Cole looked at the young woman tied to the horse. Her dark eyes met his, and he saw something there that gave him pause. Fear, yes, but not the fear of someone caught in a crime. This was the fear of someone who knew they were about to die for something they didn't do. "You speak English?" Cole asked her directly. "I speak English," Maria replied, her voice steady despite her circumstances. "And I did not kill the Morrison family. I found them already dead when I sought shelter from the storm last night." "Lies!" Hutchins shouted. "Apache lies. She was caught red-handed." "What storm?" Cole asked, looking around at the cloudless sky. Sheriff Clayton stepped forward. "We had a powerful thunderstorm roll through last night, knocked down trees, flooded the creek. Lasted most of the night." Cole nodded, filing away this information. "And when exactly were the bodies discovered?" "This morning around 8 o'clock, Clayton replied. "Tom Morrison was supposed to meet me in town about some cattle business. When he didn't show up, I rode out to check on them." "Who found the girl?" "I did," Hutchins said proudly. "Tracked her to a canyon about 3 miles from the Morrison place. She was trying to catch one of Tom's horses." Cole studied the man's face. 3 miles? In this heat, on foot, that's at least an hour's walk. Maybe more." He turned back to Maria. "Why were you at the Morrison place?" "I was traveling to find work in Tucson," Maria explained. "The storm caught me, and I sought shelter. The house was dark, but the door was open. I called out, but no one answered. I went inside to get out of the rain." "And found them dead," Cole said. "Yes, the man and woman in their bed. The children." She paused, her composure cracking slightly. "I have seen death before, but this was evil. Whoever did this took pleasure in it." "She's lying," Hutchins insisted. "Apache are born killers. Everyone knows that." Cole felt his temper rising, but he kept his voice level. "I've known Apache people who were peaceful farmers and white men who were cold-blooded murderers. Color of someone's skin doesn't tell you what's in their heart." This statement drew angry murmurs from the crowd, but Cole continued. "Sheriff Clayton, did you examine the scene carefully?" Clayton looked uncomfortable. "Well, yes, of course. It was pretty obvious what happened." "Humor me," Cole said. "Describe exactly what you found." Clayton glanced nervously at the crowd before speaking. "Tom and Sarah were in their bedroom. Both had been stabbed multiple times. The children were in their room across the hall. Same thing. There was a lot of blood." "Any sign of a struggle?" "Some furniture was overturned. Sarah's jewelry box was emptied out." "Robbery, then," Cole mused. "What about tracks? With all that rain, the ground would have been soft." "Tracks were mostly washed out," Clayton admitted. "But we found Apache moccasin prints near the house." "Those were mine," Maria said quietly. "I told you. I sought shelter there." Cole was beginning to get a clearer picture of what had happened. "Sheriff, can I speak with you privately for a moment?" Clayton looked relieved at the excuse to step away from the crowd. They moved a few yards away, though Cole kept one eye on Maria and the increasingly agitated townspeople. "You don't really believe she did this, do you?" Cole asked quietly. Clayton ran a hand through his graying hair. "Honestly, I don't know what to believe. The evidence, it doesn't quite add up." "How so?" "Well, for one thing, she's not a big woman. Tom Morrison was a large man, probably outweighed her by 100 pounds. Even if he was asleep when she attacked, you'd expect to see more signs of a fight. What else? The knife they found on her. It's Apache made, sure enough. But it was clean. No blood on it at all." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Clean? After supposedly stabbing 4 people to death? That's what bothers me. Plus, if she was trying to rob them, why didn't she take anything? Her pockets were empty except for a few coins. No jewelry, no valuables. And the horse stealing?" Clayton shrugged. "Could be she was just trying to get away. Can't say I'd blame her finding herself in a situation like that." Cole looked back at the crowd, which seemed to be growing more restless by the minute. "Sheriff, I think you've got the wrong person." "Maybe so, but try telling that to these folks. They want blood and they want it now. Tom Morrison was well liked in this town. His family too. Have you considered that whoever really did this might still be out there?" Clayton's face paled slightly. "You think so?" "I think it's possible. and I think this young woman is about to pay for someone else's crimes." Before Clayton could respond, a commotion erupted from the crowd. Hutchins had apparently grown tired of waiting and was reaching for the rope that someone had thrown over a sturdy oak tree branch. "Time for talk is over," Hutchins declared. "This Apache killed innocent folks, and she's going to pay." The crowd roared its approval, and several men moved toward Maria's horse. Cole saw the young woman's composure finally crack, her eyes widening with genuine terror, as the reality of her situation hit home. Cole didn't hesitate. He spurred his horse forward, putting himself between Maria and the approaching mob. "That's far enough," he called out, his hand moving to rest on his gun butt. "Nobody's hanging anybody today." The crowd stopped, startled by this unexpected intervention. Hutchins's face twisted with rage. "Get out of the way, stranger. This is none of your business." "I'm making it my business," Cole replied calmly. "This woman deserves a fair trial, not a lynching." "She's Apache," someone shouted from the crowd. "Since when do Apache get trials?" "Since the law says they do," Cole responded. "Sheriff Clayton, do you have a jail in this town?" Clayton nodded nervously. "Yes, but then that's where she belongs, until this matter can be properly investigated." Hutchins stepped forward, his hand hovering near his own weapon. "Mister, I don't know who you think you are, but you're not stopping this. Stand aside, or we'll go through you." Cole's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. "I wouldn't recommend trying that." For a tense moment, the two men stared at each other. Cole could feel the crowd's energy shifting, some of them beginning to realize that this confrontation might turn deadly. Finally, Hutchins seemed to think better of testing the stranger's resolve. "This isn't over," Hutchins muttered, but he stepped back. Cole turned to Sheriff Clayton. "Sheriff, I suggest we escort Miss Santos to your jail for her own protection while we sort this out properly." Clayton looked uncertain, glancing between Cole, the crowd, and his prisoner. Finally, he nodded. "You're right. Come on, let's get her out of here before things get worse." As they began to move toward the jail, Cole found himself riding beside Maria. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why are you helping me?" Cole considered her question for a moment. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because I don't think you killed those people. You do not know me. How can you be certain? I've seen a lot of killers in my time. You're not one of them. If this incredible story of courage and standing up for what's right is moving you, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe. There's so much more to discover about what happens when one person decides to fight for justice." The jail in Silver Creek was a small, sturdy building made of adobe and wood with 2 cells and a modest office for the sheriff. As they escorted Maria inside, Cole could hear the angry murmur of the crowd that had followed them. Clayton was visibly nervous, his hands shaking slightly as he unlocked one of the cells. "Ma'am, I'm sorry about this," Clayton said as Maria stepped into the cell, "but it's for your own safety right now." Maria nodded, understanding the precarious nature of her situation. "Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you," she added, looking at Cole. Cole touched the brim of his hat in acknowledgement. As Clayton locked the cell door, Cole pulled him aside. "Sheriff, we need to go back to the Morrison place and take a proper look around. If this woman didn't kill that family, then whoever did is still out there." Clayton glanced nervously toward the door, where they could still hear the crowd outside. "I don't know if I can leave her here alone. That mob is pretty worked up. Then we take turns. One of us stays here, the other investigates. But we need to find out what really happened." Before Clayton could respond, the door burst open and Hutchins strode in, followed by several other townsmen. The big man's face was red with anger. "Clayton, you're making a big mistake here," Hutchins said. "That Apache needs to hang, and she needs to hang today." "Mr. Hutchins, she's in custody and she'll get a fair trial," Clayton replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Fair trial?" Hutchins laughed bitterly. "Like the fair trial the Morrison family got? Tom Morrison was my partner, Clayton. We built half this town together. His blood demands justice." Cole stepped forward. "Justice, yes, but not vengeance. There's a difference." Hutchins turned on Cole with fury. "I'm getting real tired of you, stranger. What's your stake in this? Why are you so eager to protect an Apache killer?" "Because I don't think she's a killer," Cole replied evenly. "And because someone needs to make sure the real murderer doesn't escape while you're busy hanging an innocent woman." "Innocent?" Hutchins spat. "She was found with the murder weapon." "A clean murder weapon," Cole pointed out. "Sheriff Clayton, Tell Mr. Hutchins about the knife. Clayton looked uncomfortable but spoke up. The knife was clean, Hutchins. No blood on it at all. So she cleaned it. When? She was supposedly running for her life, trying to steal horses. When did she have time to clean a knife thoroughly? Hutchins paused, clearly not having considered this detail, but his anger quickly reasserted itself. Apache are cunning. Everyone knows that. Probably cleaned it in the creek. Cole shook his head. Have you seen the creek lately? It's running high and muddy from last night's storm. You couldn't clean anything in that water. You seem to have an answer for everything, Hutchins said suspiciously. Makes a man wonder whose side you're really on. The implicit accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Cole felt his temper rising but kept his voice steady. I'm on the side of the truth, Mr. Hutchins, and the truth is that your evidence doesn't add up. What are you suggesting? One of the other townsmen asked. I'm suggesting that someone else killed the Morrison family, and this young woman just had the misfortune to stumble onto the scene. Hutchins laughed harshly. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Who else would have done it? I don't know yet, Cole admitted, but I intend to find out. From her cell, Maria spoke up quietly. There was someone else there. Everyone turned to look at her. Hutchins' expression grew even more hostile. What did you say? When I found the family, I heard a horse leaving. Someone was riding away fast, heading south toward the mountains. Why didn't you mention this before? Clayton asked. Would you have believed me? Maria replied. You had already decided I was guilty. Hutchins snorted. More Apache lies. She's trying to save her neck. But Cole was intrigued. What did you hear exactly? Hoofbeats, moving quickly. Heavy horse, probably carrying a large rider. The sound was fading when I entered the house as if they had just left. Convenient story, Hutchins muttered. Cole ignored him and continued questioning Maria. Did you see anything else? Any other signs that someone else had been there? Maria thought for a moment. The back door was open. I entered through the front, but when I explored the house, I found the back door standing wide. It was raining hard, so anyone leaving that way would have been soaked. Or they would have waited under the back porch until the rain lessened, Cole mused. There is no back porch, Maria said. Just a step down to the yard. Cole turned to Clayton. Sheriff, we need to ride out to the Morrison place right now. I can't leave her here alone, Clayton protested, gesturing toward the crowd outside. Then deputize me, Cole said. Give me the authority to investigate this properly. Clayton looked uncertain. I don't know. I barely know you. You know I'm the only one here interested in finding the truth instead of just finding someone to blame. After a moment's hesitation, Clayton reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a deputy's badge. Raise your right hand. The impromptu swearing-in ceremony was brief, and Cole pinned the badge to his vest with a sense of familiar responsibility. He had worn similar badges in other towns, other circumstances, but the weight of this one felt particularly heavy. Hutchins, I want you and your friends to go home, Cole said, his new authority adding weight to his words. Let us do our job. I'm not taking orders from some drifter with a tin star, Hutchins shot back. Then take them from me, Clayton said, finally showing some backbone. Hutchins, go home. All of you. Let us investigate this properly. Hutchins looked like he wanted to argue further, but the official nature of Cole's position seemed to give him pause. Fine, he said finally, but if you don't find anything by tomorrow morning, that Apache swings. Partner or no partner, Tom Morrison's death won't go unavenged. After Hutchins and his followers left, Cole turned to Clayton. I'll ride out to the Morrison place. You stay here and make sure our prisoner stays safe. What am I supposed to do if that mob comes back? Hold them off as long as you can. Fire some warning shots if you have to. I'll be back before dark. As Cole prepared to leave, Maria called out to him. Deputy Brennan, there is something else. Cole approached her cell. What is it? When I first approached the house, I smelled smoke. Not from the chimney, this was different. Like someone had been burning paper or cloth. Where was the smell coming from? Behind the house where the kitchen garden is. Cole nodded, filing away this information. Anything else? Maria hesitated, then spoke quietly. The children, they were not killed in their beds like the sheriff said. They had been moved. I could see drag marks on the floor. Cole felt a chill. Moved from where? I think they saw what happened to their parents. I think they tried to hide. The implications of this were horrifying, and Cole could see that Maria was disturbed by the memory. Why didn't you tell the sheriff this? Would it have mattered? He had already decided I was guilty. Cole considered this sadly. She was probably right. Once a mob decided on a target, facts often became irrelevant. "I'll find the truth," Cole promised her, "whatever it is." The ride to the Morrison homestead took Cole through some of the most beautiful country he'd ever seen. Rolling hills covered with mesquite and oak trees, with the distant mountains providing a dramatic backdrop. Under different circumstances, he might have enjoyed the scenery, but today his mind was focused on the grim task ahead. The Morrison place was a modest but well-maintained ranch house surrounded by a few outbuildings and corrals. Even from a distance, Cole could see that this had been a prosperous operation. The house was larger than most frontier homes, with a covered front porch and glass windows, luxuries that spoke of success and stability. As he approached, Cole began his investigation methodically. He started by examining the ground around the house, looking for tracks that might have survived the previous night's storm. The rain had indeed washed away most signs, but near the back door he found something interesting: the partial print of a boot, much larger than anything Maria could have made. The print was deep, suggesting a heavy man, and the sole showed a distinctive wear pattern on the left side. Cole made a mental note of these details and continued his search. Behind the house, in what had been a small garden, Cole found evidence of a recent fire. The ashes were cold now, but he could see the remains of burned paper among the debris. He knelt down and carefully sifted through the ashes, finding fragments of what looked like letters or documents. One partially burned scrap caught his attention. It appeared to be part of a business document, with the words mining rights and partnership agreement still visible. Cole carefully wrapped the fragment in his handkerchief and tucked it into his pocket. Inside the house, Cole forced himself to examine the crime scene despite the horror of what he found. The Morrison family had indeed been brutally murdered, but as he looked more carefully, details began to emerge that supported Maria's story. The children's room showed clear signs that they had tried to hide under their bed before being dragged out. There were small handprints on the floor where they had tried to crawl away. The cruelty of it made Cole's stomach turn, but it also told him something important. Whoever did this had taken time to hunt down the children. This wasn't a quick robbery gone wrong. This was methodical, purposeful killing. In the master bedroom, Cole found something else that didn't fit with the theory of Apache raiders. The jewelry box that had supposedly been emptied was sitting on the dresser, but its contents were scattered on the floor around it. If someone had been robbing the house, why not take the jewelry with them? Why just dump it on the floor? Unless they were looking for something specific, something that wasn't jewelry. Cole searched the house more thoroughly, looking for any sign of what the killer might have been seeking. In Tom Morrison's study, he found the answer. The desk had been ransacked, papers scattered everywhere, but the drawers themselves were still in place. Someone had been looking through documents, not trying to steal money or valuables. A careful search of the scattered papers revealed that several were missing from what should have been a complete set of business records. Morrison had apparently been involved in several mining ventures, and some of the partnership agreements were no longer in the file. Cole was beginning to see a motive that had nothing to do with Apache raiders or random violence. This looked like a business dispute that had turned deadly. As the sun began to set, Cole made one final circuit of the property. Near the barn, he found more boot prints, these protected from the rain by an overhang. The same distinctive wear pattern, and this time clear enough to make a plaster cast if needed. More importantly, he found horse tracks leading away from the barn toward the south, exactly as Maria had described hearing. The tracks were deep and widely spaced, suggesting a large horse carrying a heavy rider moving at speed. Cole followed the tracks as far as he could in the fading light. They led straight toward the mountains, taking a route that would avoid the main road and any chance of being seen by other travelers. By the time Cole returned to Silver Creek, it was full dark. As he approached the jail, he could see that a crowd had gathered again, though smaller than before. Torches and lanterns cast dancing shadows on the faces of the townspeople, giving the scene an ominous atmosphere. Cole dismounted and pushed through the crowd to the jail. Inside, he found Sheriff Clayton pacing nervously, a shotgun in his hands. "Thank God you're back," Clayton said. "They've been getting more agitated as the evening wore on. Hutchins has been stirring them up, talking about Apache savagery and the need for immediate justice." Cole looked toward Maria's cell. She was sitting on the narrow cot, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. Despite everything, she maintained her dignity. "How is she holding up?" Cole asked. "Better than I would be in her situation," Clayton admitted. She hasn't said much. Just asked for water a couple of times. Cole approached the cell. Miss Santos, I've been to the Morrison place. You were right about several things. Maria looked up at him with hopeful eyes. You found evidence? I found evidence that someone else was there. Boot prints too large to be yours, horse tracks leading south, and signs that someone had been burning documents behind the house. Documents? Business papers, I think. It looks like someone was trying to destroy evidence of some kind of partnership or agreement. Clayton joined them at the cell. You think this was about business, not random killing? I think Tom Morrison was killed because of something he knew or something he had. The murder of his family was just to eliminate witnesses. But who would do such a thing? Clayton asked. Before Cole could answer, the door burst open and Hutchins strode in, followed by a larger group of townspeople than before. The big man's eyes were wild with anger and something else, something that looked almost like desperation. Time's up, Clayton, Hutchins declared. We've waited long enough for justice. That Apache is going to hang tonight, whether you like it or not. Cole stepped forward. Mr. Hutchins, I've found evidence that someone else killed the Morrison family. What evidence? Hutchins demanded. Cole described the boot prints, the horse tracks, and the burned documents. As he spoke, he watched Hutchins's face carefully. The man's expression grew increasingly agitated, and Cole noticed something else. Hutchins was favoring his left foot slightly, the same foot that would have made the distinctive wear pattern Cole had found. That doesn't prove anything, Hutchins said when Cole finished. Could have been anyone. Could have been, Cole agreed. But I don't think it was just anyone. I think it was someone who knew about Tom Morrison's business dealings, someone who had access to his partnership agreements. Hutchins's face was growing red. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating that Tom Morrison was killed by someone who wanted to destroy evidence of a business relationship, someone who stands to gain from his death. The crowd began murmuring among themselves, and Cole could see doubt creeping into some faces. But Hutchins wasn't backing down. This is ridiculous, Hutchins snarled. You're trying to protect an Apache killer with wild theories and speculation. Am I? Cole reached into his pocket and pulled out the partially burned document fragment. Then how do you explain this? It's part of a mining partnership agreement between Tom Morrison and someone else, someone who apparently didn't want that partnership to become public knowledge. Hutchins stared at the fragment, his face going pale. Where did you find that? In the ashes behind the Morrison house, along with the remains of several other documents. The crowd was growing restless, sensing the tension between Cole and Hutchins, but not understanding what was happening. Clayton looked confused, clearly struggling to follow the implications of what Cole was suggesting. Hutchins, Cole said quietly, what size boots do you wear? What kind of question is that? A simple one. What size? Hutchins's hand moved toward his gun. I don't have to answer your questions. Actually, you do. I'm a deputy sheriff, and I'm investigating a murder. Now, what size boots do you wear? The silence in the jail was deafening. Everyone seemed to sense that something crucial was happening, but only a few understood what it was. Finally, Hutchins spoke, his voice hoarse. 11. Cole nodded. And I'm betting if we compare your left boot to the prints I found at the Morrison place, we'll find a perfect match. You're crazy, Hutchins said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Tom Morrison was your business partner, wasn't he? You said so yourself, but partnerships can go bad, especially when there's a lot of money involved. Mining rights can be worth a fortune. Hutchins was sweating now, despite the cool evening air. You don't know what you're talking about, Cole continued relentlessly. I think Tom Morrison discovered something about your business practices. Maybe you were cheating him, or maybe you were involved in something illegal. Either way, he was going to expose you, so you killed him. That's a lie. Is it? Then you won't mind if we search your property for the missing documents, or compare your boot prints to the ones I found, or examine your horse to see if it matches the tracks leading away from the Morrison place. Hutchins looked around desperately, realizing that the crowd's attention had shifted from Maria to him. The bloodlust was still there, but now it was focused on a different target. You're all fools if you believe this drifter over me, Hutchins shouted. I've lived in this town for 10 years. I've built this place up with my own hands. And Tom Morrison was going to tear it all down, wasn't he? Cole said. He found out about your schemes and you couldn't let him talk. With a roar of rage, Hutchins went for his gun, but Cole was ready for him. The deputy's Colt cleared leather first, and Hutchins froze with his hand halfway to his weapon. Don't do it, Hutchins, Cole warned. You've killed enough people. For a moment, the two men stared at each other. Then Hutchins seemed to deflate, his shoulders sagging in defeat. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," he said quietly. "Tom was going to ruin everything. He found out about the fake claims, the forged documents, 20 years of work, and he was going to destroy it all for the sake of his precious principles." The confession hit the crowd like a physical blow. Several people stepped back from Hutchins, as if he had become something dangerous and contagious. "So you killed him," Cole said. "I went there to reason with him," Hutchins continued, his voice growing stronger as if he was relieved to finally tell the truth. "But he wouldn't listen. Said he was going to the territorial authorities in the morning. I couldn't let that happen." "And his family?" Hutchins' face twisted with anguish. "They saw me. Sarah woke up when Tom started struggling. The children came running. I couldn't leave witnesses." The silence that followed was broken by someone in the crowd beginning to weep. Cole felt sick thinking about those two innocent children, murdered simply because they had seen something they shouldn't have. "The knife," Cole said. "Where did you get the Apache knife?" "Found it on a dead warrior last year. Kept it as a trophy. When I realized I needed someone to blame for the murders, it seemed perfect." "Make it look like an Apache attack." Cole looked at Maria, who had been listening to this confession with a mixture of relief and horror. "And Miss Santos just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I heard her coming when I was burning the papers. Hid in the barn until she went into the house, then got away. When you found her the next morning, it seemed like a gift from God." "More like a gift from the devil," Cole said grimly. He turned to Sheriff Clayton, who was staring at Hutchins in shock. "Sheriff, I think you need to arrest Mr. Hutchins for the murder of the Morrison family." Clayton seemed to shake himself out of his daze. "Yes, of course." He moved toward Hutchins with handcuffs, but the big man held up his hand. "No need for that, Sheriff. I'm not going anywhere." As Clayton placed Hutchins in the cell that had been intended for Maria, Cole unlocked the door to her cell. "Miss Santos, you're free to go. I'm sorry for what you've been put through." Maria stepped out of the cell, her legs slightly unsteady after the ordeal. "Thank you, Deputy Brennan. You saved my life." "Just did what needed to be done," Cole replied. The crowd outside had dispersed quickly once word of Hutchins's confession spread. Some people seemed ashamed of how ready they had been to hang an innocent woman, while others were simply eager to distance themselves from the ugly events of the day. Cole found himself standing on the porch of the jail with Maria as the last of the townspeople drifted away. The night air was cool and clean, a welcome relief after the tension of the past few hours. "What will you do now?" Cole asked. "Continue to Tucson, I suppose. Try to find work there. You're welcome to stay in Silver Creek if you want. After what happened today, I think the town owes you at least that much." Maria smiled sadly. "I do not think I would be welcome here regardless of my innocence. There is too much fear, too much hatred." Cole knew she was probably right. Even though she had been vindicated, the fact remained that she was Apache in a territory where racial tensions ran high. Her life here would never be easy. "Where will you go?" she asked. Cole realized he hadn't thought about his own future since riding into town that morning. Everything had changed in the space of a few hours. "Don't know yet. Sheriff Clayton offered me a permanent job here, but like you said, this town has some healing to do. Might be better if I moved on." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Maria spoke. "Deputy Brennan, you could have ridden away this afternoon. No one would have blamed you for not getting involved. Why did you stay?" Cole considered her question. "Because someone had to. Because it was right. And because—" he paused, trying to put his feelings into words. "Because I've seen too much injustice in my life to let it happen when I have the power to stop it." Maria nodded, understanding. "You are a good man, Cole Brennan. Just trying to be, Miss Santos. Just trying to be. If this powerful story of justice and moral courage has touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales of people who stood up for what's right. And remember, share this story with others who believe that one person can make a difference." As the days passed, the story of what had happened in Silver Creek spread throughout the territory. Cole found himself something of a local hero, though the attention made him uncomfortable. He had never been the type to seek glory or recognition. He was simply a man who tried to do what was right. The trial of Hutchins was swift and decisive. Faced with overwhelming evidence and his own confession, the man pled guilty to 4 counts of murder. He was sentenced to hang, though he would face a legal execution rather than the mob justice he had tried to arrange for Maria. Maria did indeed leave for Tucson, though not before the town presented her with a small sum of money as compensation for her ordeal. It wasn't much, but it was a gesture of apology from people who had been ready to see her hanged for a crime she didn't commit. Cole remained in Silver Creek for several more weeks, helping Sheriff Clayton restore order and confidence to the community. The revelation that one of their leading citizens had been a murderer had shaken the town profoundly, and it took time for people to begin trusting their neighbors again. During this time, Cole learned more about the extent of Hutchins's crimes. The man had been involved in numerous fraudulent mining schemes, forging documents and filing false claims to cheat both investors and the government. Tom Morrison's murder had been just the latest and most desperate attempt to cover his tracks. As autumn arrived in the Arizona territory, Cole finally decided it was time to move on. The badge he wore felt heavier now, weighted with the knowledge of how close an innocent woman had come to dying because of prejudice and fear. But it also felt more meaningful, a symbol of his commitment to justice regardless of personal cost. On his last day in Silver Creek, Cole was preparing to saddle his horse when Sheriff Clayton approached him. "Hate to see you go, Cole," Clayton said. "The town council voted to offer you the sheriff's job permanently. Good pay, decent house, respect of the community. What more could a man want?" Cole smiled and shook his head. "It's a generous offer, Sheriff, but I think it's time for me to move on. This town needs to heal, and maybe it's better if the reminders of what happened aren't walking around wearing a badge." Clayton nodded, understanding. "Where will you go?" "South, I think, maybe California. I hear there are opportunities out there for a man with law enforcement experience." "Well, wherever you end up, I hope they appreciate what they're getting. You're a good lawman, Cole Brennan. More than that, you're a good man." As Cole rode out of Silver Creek, he reflected on the events that had brought him there and changed his life. He had arrived looking for work and found something much more important, a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper understanding of what it meant to stand up for justice. The image of Maria Santos, sitting straight-backed in her saddle, despite being surrounded by people who wanted her dead, would stay with him forever. Her courage in the face of injustice had inspired his own, and her quiet dignity had reminded him that true strength often comes from those who appear most vulnerable. But perhaps the most important lesson Cole took from Silver Creek was that evil often wears a familiar face. Hutchins had been a respected member of the community, a successful businessman, a man people trusted and looked up to. Yet underneath that respectable exterior had lurked a heart capable of murdering children in cold blood. It was a sobering reminder that a badge and a gun were only tools. What mattered was the character of the person who carried them. Cole vowed that he would never forget that lesson, no matter where his wandering took him. The Arizona sun was beginning to set as Cole reached the crest of a hill that offered a last view of Silver Creek. The town looked peaceful in the golden light, its troubles hidden from this distance. Smoke rose from chimneys, lights appeared in windows, and life continued its eternal rhythm. Somewhere out there, Maria Santos was beginning a new life, free from the shadow of false accusations and mob justice. Somewhere else, other innocents might be facing their own moments of crisis, needing someone to stand up for them when no one else would. Cole touched the brim of his hat in a final salute to Silver Creek, then turned his horse toward the distant mountains. The road ahead was uncertain, but he faced it with the confidence of a man who knew what he stood for and wasn't afraid to act on those convictions. Behind him, the town settled into evening quiet. The jail was empty now except for Hutchins, who would soon face the justice he had tried to deny to others. The Morrison family had been laid to rest with the truth of their deaths finally known, and somewhere in the growing darkness, the spirit of justice that had nearly died in Silver Creek burned a little brighter because one man had refused to let fear and prejudice triumph over truth. Cole Brennan rode into the sunset, carrying with him the knowledge that sometimes the most important battles are fought not with guns and armies, but with courage and conscience. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating enemies, but from saving the innocent. And sometimes the measure of a man isn't found in what he takes from the world, but in what he gives back to it. The story of the cowboy who saved an innocent woman from a lynch mob would be told and retold in saloons and parlors throughout the territory. Some would embellish the details, others would change the names, but the essential truth would remain that one person standing up for what's right can change everything. And in a world too often divided by fear and hatred, That was a story worth telling.